Good evening and welcome to this NDTV special town hall event. Killer roads. Not quite what you or I would want India to be known for. लेकिन यही हकीकत है. And it has been for several years. The world's highest annual figures for road deaths are from India. कहना होगा कि हम इस मुद्दे पर तभी बात करना शुरू करते हैं जब कोई हाई प्रोफाइल सड़क दुर्घटना होती है और वो एक ताज़ा खबर या हेडलाइन बन जाती है. I am Siddharth Vinayak Patankar.
And I am Vishnu Shom. But as Siddharth said, shouldn't it stay a headline? Because the figures are staggering in our country. In fact, just in 2021, last year, a whopping 1.5 lakh people were killed in road accidents on Indian roads. And those are just the official figures. The real numbers, who knows what they actually were. Road safety is back in focus after the tragic death of the former chairperson of the Tata Group, Cyrus Mistry.
Now the key issue, rear seat belts, यानी गाड़ी के पिछले सीट पर बैठने वाले लोगों की सेफ्टी. शायद आप में से बहुत कम लोग ये सीट बेल्ट पहनते हैं और ये सिर्फ भारत की प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. ज़्यादातर दुनिया भर में लोग गाड़ी के पिछले सीट पर सीट बेल्ट नहीं पहनते. And that's obviously a problem, but as this accident has highlighted, it's not the only problem.
You know, Siddharth, there is a clear spotlight on road design and the quality of road infrastructure, which we also need to focus on, and we will. But I think when a lot of our viewers actually decide they want to talk about this issue and they want to think about this issue, the one thought that comes to their mind is, look, why do we need a rear seat belt? There's a seat in front of us, it's well cushioned, and therefore if something happens, we'll be fine. But what we'll show you is a video which actually shows you an accident, and let's play out this video at a speed of just 40 kilometers per hour. The passenger in the rear seat is not wearing the seat belt. Take a look at this video. Slamming into the passenger in the front seat. This is only at 40 kilometers per hour. The passenger in the rear seat who is belted, this is the reverse angle, remains entirely secure. You can see that over there. This is the reverse angle at 40 kilometers per hour. This has been a test conducted by an Australian state government. This is the passenger who is without a belt. Look at the rear seat. And this passenger is flung to the front at a speed of just 40 kilometers per hour, and we'll compare it with what happens to a passenger who is belted in the rear seat on the opposite side. This is the opposite side that we are talking about. The airbags deploy in front, the passenger in the back is entirely secure. So that is why one needs to be wearing seat belts in the back. And again, why are we talking about this? Consider this. 1.55 lakh lives were lost in road accidents last year in India. That translates to a whopping 426 lives every day. That translates into 18 lives every single hour. These are the highest death figures recorded in any calendar year so far in India as far as road accidents are concerned. As many as 3.71 lakh people were also injured, and I think it's really important, Siddharth, that we speak about road injuries as well. A lot of people lose their limbs. The quality of their lives is completely destroyed. One final statistic before we introduce our panel, and it's a great one. In Mizoram, Punjab, Jharkhand and UP, and these are government figures, road accidents caused more deaths, right? There were more road accidents than the number of people actually injured. That gives you an idea of how fatal road accidents actually are. I'm going to introduce our panel at this stage, and we've got a great one, as I mentioned. Rohit Baluja, President of the Institute of Road Traffic Education. Thanks, Mr. Baluja, for being with us. Shashank Srivastav, Senior Executive Director of Maruti. Also with us in the studio, Anurag Kulshresht, Founder, President of Tracks Road Safety, which is an NGO which deals with this very, very closely. We've also got Ashish Gupta, the Brand Director of Volkswagen Passenger Cars India. Santosh Iyer, the Vice President, Sales and Marketing of Mercedes India. And we're very fortunate to have somebody who has decided that this is such an important theme that they just must actually speak out. Harman Singh Sidhu is a car crash survivor. He survived a Maruti 800 crash. He's the founder of Arrive Safe, and he believes that this is something that he needs to do, talking about road safety. Siddharth.
All right, so let's get this started. We also have with us a wonderful studio audience and a lot of young minds here with us who are, of course, very affected by all of this news and will also participate in this discussion. Dr. Baluja, let me start with you. You're right next to me, so I'm going to jump right in. ये जो अभी हाल ही में एक्सीडेंट हुआ है उसमें काफ़ी हमने देखा है मीडिया का फोकस रहा है। हाई प्रोफाइल एक्सीडेंट मैं शुरुआत में कह रहा था, जब ऐसा कुछ होता है तब हम इस बारे में बहुत चर्चा करते हैं, उसके बाद सब भूल जाते हैं। ये आपने काफ़ी बार देखा है?
ऐसा ही होता है। लास्ट टाइम भी जब हमारे मंत्री मुंडे जी की डेथ हुई तभी सब कुछ उछल के आया। और लेकिन हमारा ये है कि जब ये नीजक रिएक्शंस होते हैं तो केवल हम उसी चीज़ की बात करते हैं जो हम ठीक समझते हैं, लेकिन इसके अलावा बहुत सारी और ऐसे मुद्दे हैं, जैसे आपने अभी बताया कि इसके अलावा कितनी चीज़ें हैं जो कि सड़क सुरक्षा पे कल्मिनेट करती हैं। अब आजकल हमारे 74% हमारे दो पहिया वाहन हैं। 30 करोड़ गाड़ियों में से 74% दो पहिया वाहन है और 45% दो पहिया मरते हैं। हमारी आंकड़े ज़रूर हैं 1.5 लाख के, लेकिन वर्ल्ड हेल्थ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कहता है कि आंकड़े गलत हैं, 3 लाख हैं। और वो कहते हैं कि सीरियस इंजरीज 26 लाख हैं। और ये हम मानते हैं, सरकार भी इस चीज़ को मानती है, लेकिन हम इस चीज़ पे ध्यान करते नहीं। तो बहुत सारे ऐसे इस वक्त हमें, आप ये देखिए कि गाड़ियाँ आज हमारी जो हैं, जो कार्स को ओनली, अब हम 2 पहिया 3 पहिया और बसेस ट्रक्स को नहीं लें तो आज हमारी गाड़ियाँ जो हैं वो वर्ल्ड स्टेटस के बराबर की हैं। आज हम जो हमारे जो नए मंत्रालय के जो स्टैंडर्ड्स हैं, हम गाड़ियाँ आज वर्ल्ड लेवल पे बना रहे हैं। सबसे अच्छी गाड़ियाँ बन रही हैं, यहाँ पे क्रैश टेस्टिंग हो रही है। लेकिन गाड़ियाँ ज़रूर बन जाती हैं, लेकिन उसके साथ क्या ड्राइवर ट्रेनिंग हमारी सही है?
No, in fact, let me just jump in because those are lots of points.
Okay.
We'll break this up into various parts. Mr. Srivastav, how important is it for Maruti to encourage the use of rear seat belts in cars? Let's talk about rear seat belts first.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have, in fact, in the last few years, had a very large campaign advising consumers to wear the seat belts. It was titled #Pehni Kya, and there was a lot of investments we did simply to make awareness about putting the seat belts. And there is a reason for it. And I completely agree with what he just said. You know, you talked about 155,000 fatalities actually, out of which about 84%, 64% is actually what we call vulnerable road users. Two-wheelers, then you have pedestrians and bicyclists. The car inmates, the people who are inside the car, their percentage of the fatalities is now reduced from about 16% or 17% in 2016 to about less than 14% now. And in urban areas like Delhi, it is less than 5%. But the problem is that when we talk of road safety, especially when we talk about those high profile accidents, we sort of limit ourselves to talking about the engineering of vehicles. Whereas, as he rightly mentioned, it is in internationally there are 4 E's of safety. It's a standard thing. First E is education, and he mentioned that. Second is enforcement. In India, 70% of the people don't wear a seatbelt in the front.
Right.
96% people don't wear seatbelts in the rear.
Right.
As of the fatalities of in cars, about 87% happens because people are not worn the seatbelts of the fatalities. Certainly, enforcement is a big thing. That's the second E. The third E is, of course, emergency care, which is how quickly you can, the
help. Golden hour is so important.
Golden hour. Yeah. Fourth is engineering of roads and of cars. So we have to look at the entire picture. Out of the 155,000, and you mentioned 426 per day.
Something.
That's like a jumbo
18 per hour.
Yes, it's 426 per day. That's like a jumbo jet going down every day.
Anurag, you also have cheat devices. Like he said, 70% of even front seatbelt users don't use them, despite having those reminders in the car or the audible ding. Some people tune it out. Some people use these cheat devices. They plug something into the seatbelt, or they put on the seatbelt and then keep it behind them. How do you enforce in a country like India, where we have such a lot of varied state laws and different kind of procedures across the country?
Actually, as I think everybody is saying about the proper enforcement, and this is basically key for the success. First, we have to improve this enforcement power in our country. Like I was in Jharkhand and there was a single SP, traffic, in entire Jharkhand.
For the whole state?
for whole of the state. How can we implement all the rules and regulations? Of course, right now we are discussing about the seat belt and all. What happened in case of Mondays? Everybody was crying. What is the crocodile tears at that time? मेरा friend जिंदा होता अगर seat belt लगाया होता.
And nothing has really changed since then.
Nothing has changed, and interestingly, like it's a matter of the implementation. Thousands of reports, experts, and NGOs are giving to the government time to time.
Right.
In case of Mondays, that case was transferred to CBI, and 2 reports were submitted to CBI. One was CRI, and another is IIT Delhi. And the clear indication was that this poor vegetation on this crossing, as well as design of this crossing, is wrong. Improve it. These are the 2 major reasons for that accident. 8 years have been passed, and this is and the same crossing is still the same crossing with the same design. So this is a level of the implementation, like when mentioned by Mr. Shashank about this. Till the moment laws are not implemented practically, nothing will happen. So first we have to ensure whether it's implementable or not.
Right.
And it's already mentioned in MV Act. Seatbelt is mandatory for all.
Yeah. In fact,
Then why is there a notification after this death?
Sure.
Yes.
So it's just I think just a mind wash to the public, whether Mr. Gadkari is not able to stop it, because it's a matter of the state governments. They are not having the wish.
Well, he says that he's going to try and see what finally happens. But I just wanted to go across to Shashank Srivastav, Senior Executive. So I beg your pardon. I wanted to go across to Santosh Iyer, Vice President Sales and Marketing at Mercedes-Benz India. Thanks very much, Mr. Iyer, for being with us. To your mind, was the accident involving Cyrus Mistry survivable if the rear seat passengers had seat belts on?
Well, I think for us to pass a judgment at this stage without a full investigation may not be appropriate. And more importantly, we have already stated that from a customer privacy perspective, it's not right for us to reveal the details as of now. We are cooperating with the investigating authorities. We are giving them all the data. But again, if you go by what we see on the media, what we see, from the visuals and the pictures, it's unfortunate that this incident has happened, and we are having this discussion now. At this point, we have been raising this issue for the past, from 2015 onwards. We have been running campaigns specifically focused on wearing seatbelts. And more importantly, we have also bought exhibits. We have been putting students, academia, different stakeholders on exhibits demonstrating what a seatbelt can do. At this stage, again, coming back to your pointed question, there is a lot of talk about structural engineering in the car. And if you just look at the visuals, the very fact that the doors could be opened, the passenger compartment was all intact, shows the structural integrity of the design and the technology and what has gone into the vehicle. But further details, we have our experts. We are leaving no stones unturned. We have a lot of data from the car itself, and all of that is being shared with the investigative authorities. And we would like to keep it there and not share any personal information as such.
No, that's fair, Santosh, and I appreciate that. And for those who need reminding, of course, the reason Santosh says this is because the car involved was a Mercedes-Benz. But to move ahead from that accident, and you mentioned things like structural integrity. A lot of those changes have, of course, become standard now, as Dr. Baruja was mentioning some time ago. But, in the luxury space especially, or the premium space, there seems to be this assumption that, the cars come that much better loaded, they're that much better built, and they have that much more that is standard. Talk about, rear seatbelt reminders, etc. Give us a sense, in terms of actually implementing some of those changes in manufacturing, what's the kind of turnaround time we're talking about?
I think it's not only an assumption, it's also a fact. 40 years back, we were the first to get an airbag into a car. 25 years back, a seatbelt into a car. And today, an ESP into a car. And today, all these are standard features across model lines. Even today, our cars have a rear warning system. But this is, so first, there is a visual warning to the driver when he starts the car to remind him or her that the rear passengers have not worn a seatbelt. And once the car and if they have worn a seatbelt and if they remove it at the time of a journey, because many cases kids sit behind the car, or even somebody removes the seatbelt, then there is an audio alarm even today. This is also part of the European legislation. September 21, the European Union has made it a mandate, but it's not a signal for putting on a seatbelt. It's a signal that if you remove a seatbelt while the car is in motion, it alerts the driver
Right.
and actually can also prompt the rear passenger. Now, coming to your question, if now this new legislation comes that we have to make it mandatory, I think the audio alarm is not a challenge, but what we need to also think of is sensors on the seat to detect if a person is already occupying that seat, and therefore it needs some engineering. Everything is possible, but there should be a lead time which we can adapt and we can incorporate in the car. But
Yeah, and
a
we
simpler
already-
solution would.
Absolutely, and we know that this technology
Right.
already exists. So, I mean, this is not in question. Let's quickly bring Ashish Gupta into this conversation as well. Ashish, good to have you. Thank you for your time. You've been hearing, of course, what all of us have been talking about here. The question I have for you is that, when you talk about that whole enforcement issue, that's the legal aspect or the side of the police on the ground. But what about that education aspect when it comes to your customers? I mean, these are well-heeled people who are buying Volkswagen cars for that matter, are all educated, well-heeled people. What is, the on-ground sort of implementation that you foresee a brand like yourself doing in terms of educating some of these buyers?
No, definitely, Siddharth. What I see from a moment in customer preference is that safety is becoming a very important aspect in the buying decision. So that's a good news for the industry. If I give you some figures, almost 60% of the cars that we sell in the country now are actually sold in the top end with more than 40 safety features. So customer awareness on buying safe products has definitely gone up. At the same time, if I look at the awareness levels, I think, and at least that's my personal observation, that the awareness on wearing front seat belts has gone up tremendously, whether it is because of the fear of the law or because customers have suddenly become more safety conscious. That's a debate. But certainly in terms of front seat belt wearing, the awareness has gone up. Where the awareness needs to be enforced and also increased is also rear passenger safety. And if I talk about rear passenger safety, we also need to take into account, for example, child safety. Just look at the number of child seats sold in the country. It's negligible. These are mandatory items in more developed countries. Anywhere you go in Europe and US, child seats are a mandatory item, and you see most of the customers actually using them. So yes, there's a lot of ground to be covered on awareness. Now, if I look at awareness, there are 2 or 3 parts to it. One is the consumer awareness, for which I think the industry has been doing a lot, as Shashank and Santosh also talked about. And you, Siddharth, have been always a flag bearer of, safety awareness. From our point of view, what we focus on is at the point of sale and at the point of service. So at the point of sale, as a part of our standard, education and feature explanation to the customers, the explanation of safety features and the importance of seatbelts, for example, is mandatory. We do run a lot of safety campaigns along with the customers, and also we focus on how can we improve pedestrian safety by collaborating with, for example, government authorities. So as an organization, we actually collaborated on the old Mumbai-Pune highway with the authorities there on road design itself. The placement of pedestrian crossings, the placement of street lights. So all these things actually play into making our roads safer. So it has to be a holistic approach in awareness in terms of the build quality of the cars, which we as manufacturers are more or less committed to. I think from a build quality point of view, we take safety as a basic DNA of, for example, all the Volkswagen cars with more than 40 safety features, with airbags, with 3-point seat belts at the rear seats. But at the same time, going into the consumer awareness also, and also making sure that our roads are designed safer. So it has to be a holistic approach, and I think that's the way to go ahead in making this topic one of the most important conversation points.
Mr. Srivastav, let's talk a little bit about airbags, because we really do need to talk about that. Obviously, in our ultra price sensitive market, particularly among cars which are less expensive, adding an airbag adds a certain cost, and in a price sensitive market that becomes problematic at various levels. But obviously nothing is more important than safety. Now, the minister Nitin Gadkari says it costs about 1,000 rupees an airbag. So the argument being raised is that, look, that's what, 6,000 rupees per car. That is something that all price points need to cater for, and people would be willing to pay. If they can't, then they shouldn't be given a choice. In that scenario, do you welcome, as Maruti, airbags all across the car?
Yes, I just mentioned that anything which adds to the safety, the engineering of a car, definitely it's something which we should look at, provided it is done in a practical manner and the implementation is done practically.
Point to sort of make before I just go across to Harman.
I'm again referring to the seat belts and airbags. Now the law in India, the rules say that everybody in a car must be wearing a seat belt, and that means that as many number of passengers should be sitting as many as the seat belts are provided. Now in India, we are not talking of cities. Please go to towns, please go to the rural areas. The buses today are just 0.8% of the entire numbers, and you know there are many more overloading of vehicles. They can't help it. Today two-wheelers are overloaded.
Look at little school buses in Delhi.
Yeah, so
and the number of children.
And if you can't put airbags to them.
No.
So
or seat belts.
Or seat belts. So today we need to be a bit practical and pragmatic. That and you know, if you are putting luggage on your car on your back seat, again the alarm will go off because it says somebody is sitting. So today we should gradually go from 2 frontal airbags to 4 airbags and wait for 6 airbags, but at the same time, one thing we could do is on highways where speeds are more than 70 kilometers an hour, we should insist that everybody must be enforced with seat belts.
What about 3-point seat belts for the middle passenger in the rear?
I mean,
isn't that something which can be done much more easily?
That should be done actually, but I don't know how practical it is at this moment, because when the airbags come in and seat belts are not worn, they are as fatal as not wearing seat belts. So some Indian conditions must be investigated scientifically. We must actually do some more research into it.
Very quickly then, let's talk about a Bharat NCAP that's been in the headlines. How worried are you then that we would just blindly follow some sort of a Western system and not take some of those Indian conditions into, or you're not worried about that?
Bharat NCAP actually should not just be a government regulatory body, it should be a mix of all. It should be also the consumers, it should be the automobiles, the part manufacturers and everybody, and the institutions, like across the world, where you can say what is. It's not just the joint secretary sitting up there can develop anything, but it is a comprehensive way that we all feel in India as we are growing up, how should the regulations come up.
Yeah, that's right, absolutely. Vishnu.
I just wanted to go across to Harman Singh Sidhu. He's a car crash survivor who's got the courage to come out and tell us a little about it. And it's a direct question, but I will ask you this question nonetheless. Harman, how did your life and the lives of people around you change in the blink of an eye in a car accident? None of us expects a car accident. We sometimes think that, look, nothing like this will ever happen to me, and yet when it does, then it changes everything. Could you tell us about your own experience?
Yeah, sure. And as you have rightly said, we need to understand that universally accepted laws of physics, they apply on, they determine the crash speed as well. That will be the force, which is mass into acceleration, or the energy, which is mass into c square, which is the light of the speed. So all these factors, they come into play. They come into play in case of a crash. So in my case, I was sitting in the back seat. It's a very similar scenario. My 2 friends who were in the front seats, they were wearing the seat belt for whatever reason, because we were in a very remote area, and the car rolled down into the gorge, and it changed my life in a second, right? Because I was not wearing the seat belt, the car did not have it at that time. Probably if there was a seat belt, I might still not be wearing it. And further to add to it, I was sitting in the wrong posture, like my arm was on the car's arm, like seat back.
Right.
These kind of things we need to learn, that even as a passenger, I have the same responsibility, let it be on a 2-wheeler or on a car. We were all talking about cities and metros like Delhi. So I'll very quickly please zoom on to the Indo-Pak border, which we normally discuss only in case of a war kind of situation. A car falls from a bridge into a water body, 10 people die, all 10 passengers die. So what was the issue? That was in year 2013. Finally, what was blamed in the police FIR? That was water in the water body. It was foggy. The bridge did not have guard railings, and there were 10 passengers in the car. And the case closes by blaming the water. So when we have this kind of investigation, as you were talking about the NCRB report, that there are more deaths than injuries in 4 states.
Yep.
It's not only about the severity of the crash, it is about how we are investigating it. So
No, I
gone.
couldn't agree more. And that's one of the reasons why we are having this program. Does anybody here have a question to ask? Can you raise your hands? Yes, go ahead. And I'll come to the rest of you later. Please, bataiye.
So my question is from you. You were talk about engineering of roads. So there are some rural areas as well as urban areas where road conditions are not that much good. So do you think that can be the factor of road accidents? If yes, then how can our government take measures to sort out this problem in this diverse country where we all have different mindsets as well as backward thinking?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. While I'm no expert on engineering of roads, but I do realize from the statistics which is available that road design is one major improvement area in our country. And I was just seeing one series of tweets today based on a tweet which was made regarding some vehicle in the crash, and people were posting pictures of different road conditions in their different areas, including the rural areas you are referring to. And they were saying, can this help us? Can any vehicle help us? Can we be safe in any vehicle in such a way? So obviously there is a need for improvement of road. I am, again, I must admit, I am not an expert on road design, but I do realize both intuitively and by the analysis of data that there seems to be a big case for thinking about the engineering aspect of roads, their maintenance, the signages. For example, there is sharp turning, there is normally a sign sharp turn ahead or school ahead or men at work, but some people post posters on them, and you don't, if the sign is not there, of course you are sunk. If the sign is there and somebody has posted a poster on it for whatever
then
this thing,
then
you have a problem.
Don't forget, the other problem is standardization across the country. You know, we sometimes don't have the uniformity being followed in terms of road design or signage across the country.
Siddharth, also, it struck me when you said this. Some people, the sign is fine, absolutely clear, but people don't know how to interpret it. They have no training.
Which goes back to your first E, the education.
Sid, have a question. Now, there's a question from Shailendra Chauhan. We've got questions online as well. Why are car manufacturers not instructed to limit speeds to 110 kilometers per hour? If you want more, buy a sports car and then buy a racetrack. Santosh Iyer, you make high performance cars. How would you answer that?
No, I think all our cars, and as per the law of the land and the regulation in India, we have a speed alert at 80 and a very aggressive speed alert at 120. Talking about consumer education, we have feedback from many saying that, hey, why this is irritating? Can we somehow disable it? Is there a way to disable these audio beeps? And the clear answer is no, because we never allow neither. That's part of the standard safety protocol which is there in the car. I think the bigger question, and I a lot agree with Shashank when he's saying, we have to be objective on this entire road safety discussion. We have 1,55,000 accident deaths. If you go to the root cause, and now if you look at the two-wheelers and the others, many of you will be surprised to know that we run a huge, data collection exercise in India, which is fed back to our headquarters in Germany, so that we can make cars more safer and also introduce technologies for across the industry. But here we also see the condition of the roads. We are discussing about national highway designs and stuff, but basic things like potholes and speed breakers. These are two topics, and if we just say that, can we just improve these two, the amount of fatalities or accidents when it comes to two-wheelers and also maybe cars and other categories can also significantly improve in a simple view. The other thing is also about the way licenses are also given. I think we have come a long way in trying to digitalize issuance of licenses, but there is still some scope to ensure that only the right people who have this correct mindset, who have the safety first as a mindset, are getting driving licenses for any category, right? From a two-wheeler. And if you don't do these basics, we can keep more. Our cars have the best, active safety, passive safety, you can name it, everything being there in the car.
No, that's a good point,
consumers
Santosh,
and the road users.
Absolutely, and this point about people getting licenses, look at many other countries, and I'm not just talking about the developed world. So many countries, you have stringent driver training requirements and then tests before you can qualify to get a license.
School education.
Exactly.
Why shouldn't it be part of school education over here?
Absolutely. One more quick question, please. I think, who was it?
I think she had a hand up first. Go ahead. Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to ask Dr. Baluja, so what do you think about road safety as a subject in higher education institutes? Because that is the time when students actually go out and they start driving. And when you're a beginner, everything seems very, very fascinating. And I've seen a lot of my friends who actually use terms like, it's not cool to wear a seatbelt, or I'll drive and you click a picture of me, or let me make a video of myself driving. So what do you think about having like road safety as a subject?
That's a wonderful question.
That is great, yes.
No, together with the International Road Federation, we have actually submitted now the detailed curriculum to the NCERT through our ministry. But the issue here is that road safety is not just wearing seat belts and helmets. It is so many other things. So what we have done is that we are trying to introduce it through the already existing subjects of the curriculum, that you understand momentum, you understand at what are safe crashing distances, you understand what are road marking signs, signals, what is the shape mean, what is the color mean. And I'm very much with you that basics should be brought to you. But India is such a vast country that we have different road environments and different practices, that you cannot teach somebody that stop here at a stop line, you have a right of way, because it is not practiced. So NCERT has given 7 principles on which curriculum must be based, and you have rightly said that education should be there from class 6 to class 10.
I must applaud you on that question, actually.
Please,
yes,
please,
please,
yes.
Anurag.
Actually, as it is a matter of the education or maybe the awareness also altogether, and of course it is enhanced by the enforcement.
Yes.
Because if you'll see, when this Motor Vehicle Act was implemented in Delhi properly, then there is challenge of 3 lakhs, 2 lakhs, 50 lakhs, or not 50 lakhs, 50,000, 24,000. Everybody was aware. They were stopping before stop line start. But as soon as the enforcement level was down, yes, we are.
Word of mouth spreads very quickly.
And second thing, there's another point which we are missing every time in India. There's a rule, or maybe the acts in different developed countries. Here also we have from Ministry and Ministry of INT. There's a small guidelines from them. Till the moment there's no demand of the story, you cannot portray the violation of traffic rules in movies, cinemas, serials, or advertisements. It is because we are getting the provocation from this scenario. That's why Government of India has made some guideline for this. Are we following it? As we are having the Mercedes-Benz, one ad was banned in Australia. Mercedes ad was just showing on a big canvas was there, and the tire impressions were there in a rash driving scenario. Only just tire impression, and this ad was banned. It was pulled off the Mercedes-Benz from Australia. This is a psychological impact from where we are, from our movies, from our advertisements, from our serials. We are just provocating our people every
So basically
after
what
10
you're saying, in
minutes, 5
movies
minutes.
and on television, there shouldn't be anything which shows driving which is rash or dangerous, because it potentially encourages people to replicate that behavior which is dangerous. Look, we are completely out of time. I think let's wrap this discussion up. It's been wonderful having all of you, and all of you from industry as well, joining us and sharing your perspectives. What we will do is play out an interview of the Minister Nitin Gadkari, who spoke to us a couple of days back, shortly after the Cyrus Mistry crash, where he made these important announcements on rear seat belts and also on airbags.
मशहूर उद्योगपति साइरस मिस्त्री की सड़क दुर्घटना में मृत्यु के बाद सड़क दुर्घटना और सड़क सुरक्षा को लेकर के कई सारे सवाल खड़े हो गए हैं। एनसीआरबी के डेटा बताते हैं कि भारत में पिछले साल 1.5 लाख से भी ज्यादा लोगों की मृत्यु सड़क दुर्घटना में हुई है। अगर इन आंकड़ों को मिनट में तब्दील करें तो करीब 18 लोगों की जान 1 मिनट में आप मान सकते हैं कि सड़क दुर्घटना में गई है। तो ये बहुत बड़ा मुद्दा है भारत में सड़क दुर्घटना का, सड़क सुरक्षा का लेकर के, और साथ ही सीट बेल्ट का मुद्दा भी आया है। हमारे साथ सड़क परिवहन मंत्री नितिन गडकरी जी मौजूद हैं। इस महत्वपूर्ण मुद्दे पर चर्चा करने के लिए आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है एनडीटीवी इंडिया पर। गडकरी जी, ये जो दुर्घटना हुई है इसने कई सारे सवाल खड़े कर दिए हैं। सबसे पहला सवाल तो सीट बेल्ट को लेकर के ही आता है। तो क्या अपनी ओर से सरकार कोशिश करेगी लोगों में जागरूकता लाने के लिए, या फिर इसको अनिवार्य किया जाएगा कि जो पीछे की सीट पर बैठे हैं उनको भी सीट बेल्ट पहनना अनिवार्य होगा, चाहे कानून में लिखा हो लेकिन लोग नहीं इसका प्रयोग करते हैं?
देखिए, पहली बात तो ऐसे ड्राइवर और ड्राइवर के बाजू के सीट पर जो बैठता है और उसके बाद जो पीछे में बैठते हैं सबके लिए अनिवार्य है, कानून है। पर सामने वाले भी लोग कभी कभी लगाते नहीं बेल्ट और पीछे वाले तो लोग भी लगाते नहीं, और इसके कारण ये दुर्घटना होती है। और इसलिए पहले ऐसा है कि सामने अगर लगाया नहीं तो वहाँ एक ट्यून बजती, आवाज़ आता है। तो अभी हमने ये तय किया है कि अभी सामने जैसा बेल्ट लगाया नहीं तो आवाज़ आएगा, तो पीछे वाले लोगों ने भी अगर लगाया नहीं बेल्ट तो भी आवाज़ आएगा। और इससे निश्चित रूप से हम लोगों का अवेयरनेस और बढ़ाएंगे और निश्चित रूप से इसका आगे फायदा होगा।
एक जो दूसरा सवाल आता है,
अगर जो लोग पीछे में सीट बेल्ट नहीं लगाएंगे उनके ऊपर भी
जी
हाँ बोलिए।
नहीं, आप अपनी बात पूरी कर लीजिए सर।
ऐसा है कि पीछे में अगर कोई सीट बेल्ट नहीं लगाएंगे तो आज ही मैंने एक फाइल पर साइन किया है, अब उनके ऊपर फाइन लगेगा मिनिमम 1000 रुपए, और उसके बारे में तुरंत ऑर्डर निकालेंगे। और ये कॉन्करेंट लिस्ट में होने के कारण स्टेट गवर्नमेंट को ऑर्डर निकालना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि लॉ एंड ऑर्डर उनके साथ होती है। निश्चित रूप से राज्य सरकार भी सहयोग करेगी और इसके ऊपर कार्रवाई होगी। पर इसमें फाइन वसूल करना यह उद्देश्य नहीं है। मैं आपके मार्फत देश की जनता को, सबको आह्वान करूंगा कि अगर सामने बैठे और पीछे बैठे हुए लोग अगर सीट बेल्ट लगाएंगे तो ये हादसे में किसी की मौत नहीं होगी। हमारे देश में 5 लाख एक्सीडेंट होते हैं, 1.5 लाख मौतें होती है, और मरने वालों की जो 18 से 34 वयोवर्ग में संख्या है वो करीब 60% है। तो मुझे लगता है कि हमको जान बचानी चाहिए, और हमने ये तय किया है कि 2024 के पहले हम 50% एक्सीडेंट और 50% डेथ कम करेंगे। अगर जनता का सहयोग मिलेगा तो ऑटोमोबाइल इंजीनियरिंग में हम सुधार कर रहे हैं, रोड इंजीनियरिंग में सुधार कर रहे हैं, इमरजेंसी सर्विसेज अवेलेबल हो इसके लिए भी कोशिश कर रहे हैं, और कानून को भी इम्प्लीमेंट करने के बारे में, इन्फोर्समेंट के बारे में भी हम कार्रवाई कर रहे हैं। सबसे बड़ी बात है एजुकेशन और पब्लिक कोऑपरेशन। इसमें हम स्कूल, कॉलेज, यूनिवर्सिटीज़, एनजीओ, सोशल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को भी आह्वान करता हूं कि आप इसमें कोऑपरेट करिए लोगों में अवेयरनेस पैदा करने के लिए। मुझे इस बात की भी खुशी है कि अक्षय कुमार जी की हमने इसके ऊपर फिल्म निकाली है। अभी 3 फिल्म हम 2 दिन के बाद बंगलोर में लॉन्च कर रहे हैं। अमिताभ बच्चन जी भी हमारे रोड एम्बेसडर इसके लिए बने हैं, वो भी कोऑपरेट करने वाले हैं। तो हम कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि सबके सहयोग से हम एक अवेयरनेस पैदा करें, और लोग अगर कानून का पालन करेंगे तो निश्चित रूप से ये समाधान निकलेगा। एक प्रॉब्लम है कि कानून के प्रति डर भी नहीं और कानून के प्रति सम्मान भी नहीं, ऐसी विचित्र अवस्था होती है। इससे दूर अगर हमारा समाज अगर इसमें और बदल हो जाएगा तो मुझे लगता है ये देश के लिए बहुत बड़ी उपलब्धि होगी और हजारों लाखों लोगों के प्राण बचेंगे।
बिल्कुल। लेकिन एक जो पहल आपके मंत्रालय की ओर से की गई थी एयरबैग की संख्या बढ़ाने को लेकर, तो बीच में ये खबर मिली कि जो कार निर्माता कंपनी है वो कहती है कि अगर हम इनकी संख्या बढ़ाएंगे तो दाम भी बढ़ जाएंगे, वो ऐसा करना नहीं चाहते हैं। तो क्या ये एक तरह से सुरक्षा के साथ समझौता करना नहीं हुआ? और अगर वो ऐसा नहीं कर रहे हैं तो फिर उन्हें किस तरह से तैयार किया जाए कि एयरबैग की संख्या बढ़ाई जाए?
पहली बात तो ऐसे कि एक एयरबैग की कीमत 1000 रुपए है, तो 6 एयरबैग में ऑलरेडी 4 लगती है, 2 बढ़ेगी तो 2000 रुपये कीमत बढ़ेगी। और जब इसका प्रमाण बढ़ेगा, नंबर बढ़ेगा, तो ये कॉस्ट और कम होने की संभावना है। और इसलिए आप जो हमारी कार कंपनियां हैं जो विदेशों में यहाँ से कार एक्सपोर्ट करती है वो 6 एयरबैग लगाती है, और इंडियन मार्केट में इकोनॉमी मॉडल में 4 लगाती है। तो क्या हमारे गरीब लोग हैं, उनके जीवन की रक्षा हमने नहीं करनी चाहिए? तो मैं उनसे भी अपील करूंगा, और ये प्रोसेस में है, जल्दी ही करने के हमारा प्रयास है।
एक आपके मंत्रालय ने पहल की थी, गडकरी जी, की एक ऐप बनाया था कि देश भर में जितने हमारे हाईवेज हैं, अगर कहीं पर ब्लाइंड स्पॉट हो या इस तरह का कोई क्षेत्र हो सड़क पर जहां पर की दुर्घटना हो सकती है, तो लोग उस ऐप पर उसकी जानकारी डालें। पर इसके बावजूद भी क्या आपको लगता है कि अभी भी देश में बड़ी संख्या में ब्लाइंड स्पॉट है? क्योंकि जो साइरस मिस्त्री जी वाली दुर्घटना हुई, इस कारण में यही कहा गया कि वहाँ पर सड़क जो है एकदम से सकड़ी हो गई, लेन उनकी जो है कम हो गई, इस कारण से जो ये भी एक कारण हो सकता है कि हादसा हुआ है।
देखिए, हमने ब्लैक स्पॉट आइडेंटिफाई किए, करीब 3,500 ब्लैक स्पॉट सुधारे, नए नए ब्लैक स्पॉट आइडेंटिफाई हो रहे हैं। और अब सबसे बड़ी बात है कि हम एक प्राइवेट एक्सपर्ट एजेंसी के द्वारा रोड का एक्सीडेंट ऑडिट करने वाले हैं, ब्लैक स्पॉट का ऑडिट करने वाले हैं, और रोड में जो भी ब्लैक स्पॉट दिखेंगे उसको तुरंत इंप्लीमेंट करने की जिम्मेदारी हमारी आरओ और पीडी को रहेगी। उसको हमने अधिकार दिए हैं, और इसके बाद अगर वो सुधार नहीं करते तो हम उनको जिम्मेदार पकड़कर उनके ऊपर सस्पेंशन तक की कार्रवाई करेंगे, कठोर कार्रवाई करेंगे। अब इसके बाद हम किसी को टॉलरेट नहीं करेंगे।
जाते जाते गडकरी जी, आप साइरस मिस्त्री जी के साथ आपका काफ़ी पुराना परिचय रहा है, किस तरह से उनको याद करेंगे, आपकी ओर से उन्हें श्रद्धांजलि?
देखिए, मैं जब मुंबई पुणे एक्सप्रेस हाईवे बना रहा था महाराष्ट्र में, तब लोनावाड़ा खंडाला का आरओबी, वहाँ की टनेल, वो सब काम शाहपुर जी पालम जी ने किया था। वो मेरे साथ उस समय काम करते थे, यंग थे, अनेक बार मेरा उनका इंटरेक्शन हुआ। वो बहुत यंग, डायनेमिक और बहुत अच्छे कॉन्ट्रैक्टर थे। उन्होंने हिंदुस्तान के विकास में उनके कंपनी ने बहुत बड़ा कंट्रीब्यूशन किया। वो टाटा सन्स के चेयरमैन भी रह चुके हैं, और इसलिए हिंदुस्तान की ग्रोथ को कंट्रीब्यूट करने वाला और व्यक्तिगत रूप से मेरे एक अच्छे मित्र के रूप में थे। उनका इस प्रकार से अपघाती निधन होना ये बहुत दुखद और अनफॉर्चुनेट है, और मेरे लिए व्यक्तिगत रूप से एक मित्र गया, इसका भी दुख है। हम सब बहुत उससे दुखी है। इससे कम से कम एक सीख ले कि इसके बाद रोड एक्सीडेंट नहीं होने चाहिए। इसके लिए हम अपना बिहेवियर और हम उसके बारे में जो भी उचित करना है वो सब करें, ताकि हम देश को अपघात मुक्त करें, एक्सीडेंट मुक्त करें। सब लोगों ने इसको कोऑपरेट किया तो निश्चित रूप से ये काम पूरा होगा।
जो आपने अपील की है कि लोग पालन करें, नियमों का पालन करें, सीट बेल्ट वगैरह लगाएं, यही बात इस दुर्घटना के बाद कई लोग कर रहे हैं। आनंद महिंद्रा जी का भी मैं ट्वीट देख रहा था, उन्होंने भी इस बात को कहा है। आपने सड़क सुरक्षा को लेकर कहा कि अक्षय कुमार, अमिताभ बच्चन, इन सबको शामिल किया जा रहा है। किस तरह से आगे इस मुहिम को बढ़ाने का प्रयास करेंगे? आपने कहा है कि ठीक है, अनिवार्य तो हम कर रहे हैं, लेकिन इसके साथ साथ लोगों को भी खुद से पालन करना चाहिए।
हम बड़े प्रमाण पर इस बार हमने रोड सेफ्टी काउंसिल बनाने का निर्णय किया है। हम एनजीओज को प्रोग्राम लेने के लिए प्रोत्साहित कर रहे हैं। एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशन, यूनिवर्सिटीज, कॉलेजेस वो कर रहे हैं। हम सड़क सुरक्षा सप्ताह कर रहे हैं। हमारे यहाँ लोग रैली निकाल रहे हैं, कार्यक्रम के द्वारा कर रहे हैं। सेलिब्रिटीज, क्रिकेटियर्स, फिल्म स्टार उनके संदेश देकर एडवर्टाइजमेंट के माध्यम से लोगों को बता रहे हैं। ऑटोमोबाइल इंडस्ट्री को कह रहे कि स्पॉन्सर करके प्रोग्राम करिए। आप जैसे मीडिया हाउसेस ऐसे कि जो लगातार इसके ऊपर कार्यक्रम कर रहे हैं। तो एक प्रकार से सबके प्रयासों से हमको लगता है कि निश्चित रूप से हम इसमें कामयाब होंगे। पर एक बात का मुझे जरूर दुख है कि मेरी मिनिस्ट्री सब जगह बहुत अच्छा काम कर रही है, पर इस विषय पर हमें अभी तक जितनी सफलता मिलनी चाहिए वो नहीं मिली है। उसका दर्द निश्चित रूप से मेरे मन को सताता है। अभी भी संवेदन मन को वो काफ़ी अस्वस्थ भी करता है, पर कोशिश कर रहे हैं, और निश्चित रूप से आप सबके सहयोग से जल्दी ये सफलता मिले, यही मैं ईश्वर चरणों में प्रार्थना करता हूँ। कम से कम साइरस मिस्त्री जी के एक्सीडेंट के बाद मैं लोगों का अपील करूंगा कि अब इसके बाद किसी की जान नहीं जानी चाहिए। हम सब लोग अब भारत को अपघात मुक्त, एक्सीडेंट मुक्त करने का प्रयास करें। वर्ल्ड में हम हाईएस्ट है, दुनिया में सबसे ज़्यादा एक्सीडेंट भारत में होते हैं, सबसे ज़्यादा लोग मरते हैं। कोई दंगे में, कोई लड़ाई में, कोई कोविड में जितने नहीं मरे उतने 1.5 लाख लोग मर रहे हैं। 3 लाख लोगों के हाथ पैर टूट रहे हैं, और इतना ही नहीं तो हमारा 3% GDP कम हो रहा है। तो लोग इसको गंभीरता से ले और लोगों की जान बचाने के इस अभियान में सहयोग करें, यही मैं उनसे प्रार्थना करता हूं।
आपको शुभकामनाएं, आपके प्रयासों में आपको सफलता मिले, हम सबकी ओर से बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं। गडकरी जी, हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।